Well, brief intro, real quick. First of all, I just want to apologize that I don't put a lot. I know I don't put a lot of time in editing into my videos, so you just kind of get what you get. I also want to say that this video falls under, I guess, self-help or instructional, and I realize that my channel is all over the fucking place. I got music, I got video game stuff, I got these instructional or unboxing videos, and I've got other random stuff. I know if I was a smart YouTuber, I would probably make a separate channel for each topic. So thank you to the small but still the subscribers that I have for subscribing for whichever reason it is that you like and not holding the other videos against me. All right, I'm not monetized anyway, so I just do this because
Hello
I want
everybody.
to.
I'm going to talk to you today about quitting smoking. I'm going to do my best not to make this too long and to just get to the point. I'm going to tell you how I did it and how I think you can do it too if you really want to quit. Um, and every time I've tried to make this video several times, and I always get derailed one way or another. So today I have some notes. So if I pause for a second and look down, I'm just reading my terrible handwriting to make sure I don't forget anything. So first of all, it's important to note a couple things about cigarettes. No, I mean cigarettes, cigars, pipes, whatever it is you're smoking, chewing tobacco. The point is we're talking about nicotine and nicotine products. So first off, with the history, I can't give you a good long detailed history about everything about tobacco, but I can tell you that the tobacco that we're smoking today, the cigarettes that you buy today, are not the same thing that the natives smoked hundreds of years ago. Okay, and it's not even the same stuff from the first part of this of the last century, from the up through the at least 1950s or 60s. A lot more chemical additives started to get added at those points. Now, why do I say that? If it's pure tobacco, is it bad for you? Yeah, it's still bad for you. Is it as bad? I don't think it's even remotely as bad. Still shouldn't do it. It's still going to be addictive, but I think it's very important to point out that the government, by forcing for as little regulation as they had for the longest time, they still have managed to force some odd regulation into cigarettes to make them more dangerous. In fact, cigarettes cost a lot of money. They didn't used to. They're always one of the cheapest habits for anybody to have. And the fact that they do it opposite nowadays and tax the hell out of it in so many states, especially my state, and I live in a blue state, so the taxes are always higher in blue states than in red states for stuff like cigarettes because they blame every possible disease as a complication of cigarettes. So one thing that I would talk about specifically with government is the started about maybe 10 years ago, the fire safety stuff. And it causes your cigarettes to burn very slowly. They go out a lot if you're not constantly pulling on them. But that fire safety additive, the additional things that happen to a person from smoking that on a regular basis are, I mean, it's hard for me to quantify without being a scientist and without having all these studies to pull from, but I can tell you when it switched over here and I went from smoking one to the other, one of the first things that I noticed after only a few months of smoking those fire safety additive cigarettes was that I was getting a lot of locking up in my jaw. And then I read some stuff about about people in California who had, I think they had enacted that law first, and it was years before a lot of other states in the country, and they had other similar odd kind of health things coming from people who had smoked and had then started smoking the fire safety cigarettes. So again, I'm not trying to advocate for cigarettes. I just government does shit wrong all the time, and keeping the price super high so that people who don't have a lot of money have to buy cigarettes like they're buying crack because it's the only thing they can afford that day. That's not the way to do it. Making the companies add stuff to the cigarettes that make them even more dangerous, then later on pointing to the stuff that they made the companies add that make them more dangerous to say this is why it's such a bad health thing and this is why so many people die. Those are just bullshit statistics. But all that being said, you still don't want to smoke. I'm not saying that there could be better. I mean, the cigarettes could be better, but they're still bad. So you got to agree with that, or you're not going to really give a shit about anything else that I'm saying because you don't really want to quit. Okay, but just remember that though. All right, government ain't going to help you. So what smoking was to me. So I started at about maybe 14 years old, and I smoked for about 29 years before I quit. And when I did quit, I was just getting sick of it. I mean, the price of a pack of cigarettes was probably about $1 to $1.50 when I started, and it had gone up to about $3 over the course of 29 years, which is not that much more. But in the last few years that I smoked, it went from $3 to $7.50 on the low end to almost $10 a pack, depending on where you bought it, which is ridiculous. So I was definitely fed up with spending that much money because I smoked, always have smoked, pack and a half to 3 packs a day. I smoked, king size, full flavor cigarettes. I never smoked, ultra lights, or never smoked hundreds. I smoked a lot, is the point. Okay, so just don't think I didn't smoke a lot, right? And I would say that I had all the same common triggers that other people have, you wake up, get in your car, drive somewhere, after you eat food, sometimes before you eat food, after sex, whenever I was stressed out, whenever I was procrastinating, trying to not do something, sitting down to pay bills, working, didn't matter. All the same common triggers that anybody else had. So I don't think I'm unique in any way like that. So no matter what, you're like, oh, I got it because of the same shit. Okay, don't make excuses. When I quit, I was just getting tired of it. I was spending so much money, and I was also getting to the point where I think we were going on about a year, where I was just wheezing like crazy. I mean, not noticeably like you're standing next to me in an elevator and I'm going so loud. For people who do that, who've smoked for a long time, that's brutal, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying I couldn't even walk up 2 flights of stairs without being winded, and just like, oh my God, I can't believe I can't. I mean, I walk a lot too. I always have walked a lot. But just that tiny bit of extra stress of going upstairs was putting me to the point where I was like, I can't believe I can't breathe. And one day I just said, that's it, I'm done. So I tried many times over the years, and I tried several different things. So some of the stuff that I'm going to tell you about, these different ways you can try to quit, are probably things that you've already heard of. So another thing, I wanted to make a quick list of what are some of the things that smoking prohibited me from doing. Okay. Definitely exercising, of course. I still tried to exercise at a couple points where I, tried to exercise, but the truth is, when I was 14, I was playing soccer, and I've been playing soccer my whole life. I remember that year because I was a freshman in high school, and that was by the time I was a sophomore, I didn't want to play soccer anymore. And I used to skateboard and bike a lot, and I was doing that. I still did it, especially the first few years you smoke. Your lungs are still resilient to it, so you still can get some wind, but shit goes away, after a while. So biking, walking, play tennis sometimes, playing basketball, even just sitting there in a court and just shooting the ball and running after it. That became an exercise that was just so tedious for me. It was frustrating. So like a lot of the rest of you tend to build your activities away from being around stuff like that, so that you don't make yourself feel like, holy shit, I gotta quit, because it's too much of a reminder. Swimming was the worst. I like swimming too. And now that I'm older and I got kids like swimming. So, it's just, the list could go on for a long time. But another thing I would add, okay, I don't want to say I don't brush my teeth. I always brush my teeth at least once a day. But you don't brush your teeth nearly as much when you smoke. You just don't. It's kind of like you're about to eat dinner, so it wouldn't make any sense to brush your teeth right before you go eat any food. It kind of works like that with cigarettes. You're about ready to go brush your teeth, and you're like, I'll have one more cigarette first. No sense in brushing right before I have a cigarette. And you're putting it off, and before you know it, you're in a pattern of skipping it a lot. So there's definitely, aside from the obvious, you don't want to stain your teeth, and you don't want to cause yourself any cancer of the mouth, especially if you dip. You just, in general, you step down the quality of your hygiene. Your oral hygiene, and you don't want to do that. And also laundry. So I've always been a relatively clean person. I mean, hygienic, and I definitely also like to have my laundry really nice and clean. I use a good soap, and I use dryer sheets, and stuff smells great. And then so here I am at the laundromat or in the laundry in my building, whatever, doing laundry, and I've got all this nice, fresh smelling laundry, and the shirt I'm wearing smells like smoke because you light a cigarette. And I mean, laundry's nice and clean when it goes in in the closet or in the drawer or whatever, but that doesn't last. So, just little things like that. And you'll notice it more once you quit. And you'll be like, man, I can't believe I went for so many years and just ignored that shit. A couple other things about my habits smoking, I guess, just to put this out there. So one of the other things that I worked a night job for a long time, from the time I was a young adult until a few years ago. So I never did get a lot of sun because I would so often wake up later in the day. That's really good as far as taking care of your skin, and it also probably helps when it's in conjunction with smoking, because those are two things that'll age your skin extremely fast if you do all the time smoke and be out in the sun a lot. So that probably helped, and the fact that I wasn't so far gone that I couldn't completely recover, that probably helped encourage me to quit too. I also always smoked with cold liquids. What do I mean by that? Cigarettes and soda went hand in hand for me. So quitting a soda is a whole nother thing, and really, 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 really easy to do and very worth it. You'll go through 3 or 4 days of extremely bad headaches, the worst headaches I've ever had. And I've had cluster headaches. I've had, if you know what cluster headaches are, you'll know what I'm talking about. I suffered from those for years from a spinal problem that I had. And the caffeine withdrawal headaches are worse. Nothing gets rid of them. Ibuprofen, Tylenol, Vicodin, Oxy, nothing gets rid of those caffeine headaches. They're brutal, but it only lasts like 3 days, and then you're over it like that. So if you're drinking soda, I definitely recommend or energy drinks. I definitely recommend quitting that too. Occasional caffeine is all right, but that daily consumption. So for me, usually it was soda, sometimes it was juice, sometimes it was water, but I always had something that was really cold. So for at least for what it's worth, while I was smoking and that hot stuff was going down in my lungs, I was also drinking something, so it kept my throat a little cooled. I don't know if that helped, but again, made it a little easier once I quit, because my throat wasn't also so far gone that the damage it did couldn't recuperate. I am one of those people who always smoked in a well-ventilated area. When I smoked in the car, the windows were always down, all the way down, always. When I smoked in my house, I had a big box fan that I would set up, blowing towards where the area I was smoking right out a window, even in the winter. And I live somewhere where it is cold as hell. So, even in the winter, I would freeze. And later on, when my kids were born, my poor kids would freeze because the window was open and the fan was on. Now, why do I mention that? Because, I can think of, for example, one of my daughter's mother, when she smoked, man, she would just smoke cigarette after cigarette, slow as hell, just smoke in the air, and it would just get thick. She would never open a window, and it drove me up the fucking wall. And I'm like, dude, you're making everything in my house stink. Like, you could smoke and not be totally disgustingly gross. You don't have to be that bad. That's a choice. So I was always a well-ventilated smoker too, and I smoke quick, which, just touch on that, when the fire safety cigarettes came around, I could smoke a king size Winston in 3 minutes or less, sometimes 2 minutes, pretty fast. And anyways, those were some other examples of the way that I smoke, just so you can make your own comparisons, because sometimes it helps for people to hear how things are similar. Okay, I've been quitting now for 2 years. Okay, so February, which is coming up on, will be 2 years. And I'm going to tell you first about a couple times that I tried and I failed. So, the first time I tried and failed, I don't remember how long ago it was, maybe 15 years ago. I tried and I used Wellbutrin. It's an antidepressant that they found also works as a smoking cessation drug. And it works all right, but there are side effects, and it's not really a cure-all. It does help. There were times when I was on it. I tried it for about 3-4 months. There were times where I was on it where I didn't want a cigarette, and it worked pretty well, but for the most part, it was still just kind of not really that great, and definitely not cheap. So I'm not a fan of that. A few years after that, I tried the nicotine gum. So now, talking about gum, the lozenges, or patches, all kind of the same family of ideas. The nicotine replacement, right? Does it work? Kinda. Kinda, because your body doesn't crave the nicotine. But here's where I think it's important to point out another little list I made. Important to point out some fun facts, false facts about nicotine. And I think the number one thing is nicotine improves concentration. No, it does not. Nicotine makes concentration worse. This is especially complicated if you haven't thought it through and done the research to understand when you have attention deficit. Because you think that it's helping you because generally stimulants are what help people who have attention deficit to concentrate. Adderall, Ritalin, Vyvanse, etc. There's a list of them. Some are narcotic, some are non-narcotic, but the point is that uppers tend to help you, and nicotine is a stimulant. But it doesn't work that way. Caffeine does a little bit for very short periods of time, but your caffeine tolerance and burnout happens so quickly that it's not really reliable. So nicotine's worse. Okay, number one, false fact. Number two is that it calms your nerves. That it's it has that kind of effect on you, like a benzodiazepine, no, it doesn't. It's a lie. I don't know where that lie came from, if that was created by the tobacco industry and circulated around, or if people who smoke just believe that it calms their nerves because they get agitated when they don't have cigarettes. It doesn't. It actually makes you more nervous. And then the third thing, and this is kind of important, is that it suppresses the appetite. True, but, it also does a lot of other stuff to your mouth and your palate that you won't, if you've been smoking for a long time, you won't really realize until after you quit, and you will have an aha moment. First of all, it dulls the way that you taste things. Okay, so like I eat a lot of hot food, and I still like hot food, but you start to get, you know how you can eat a little bit of hot food and then you get a tolerance for it, so you eat hotter stuff all the time? It's kind of like that with cigarettes, except what that really affects, one of the worst categories of food for that is like potato chips. You eat stuff that's so salty and so bad for you, and you have a harder time tasting it because you've damaged or destroyed a lot of your taste buds, that you need stuff that's just stronger or more extreme. I'm thinking of Doritos, I guess, specifically. You just need stuff that's more extreme. And you think that, yeah, this tastes okay, but I need more and more and more. And you just eat too much of it. I think cigarettes really encourage eating a lot of empty carbs. So does it suppress your appetite? Sure, because you eat less. It also just makes you want to eat garbage food all the time. Because you'll find once you quit, that stuff that's actually healthy for you can taste good. Whereas if you're trying really hard to eat healthy while you're still smoking, nothing tastes better than sugar and salt, obviously. Those are like the top junk foods. They're all based in one or the other. Saturated fat, sugar, salt, which essentially all of it breaks down into sugar anyways. But you will find that you will like healthy food a lot more once you can taste it. That stuff tastes so bad. It really doesn't taste that bad. You've just destroyed your tongue. So don't forget that. Okay, so after the gum lozenges, I think at one point I might have tried patches too, but I never liked patches. I think they're like a 72-hour time release, and trying to figure out how much nicotine and tar you get out of a cigarette is really difficult, because cigarettes I smoked had something like 18 milligrams nicotine, 20 milligrams tar, or the other way around. And of course, everybody's quantity of delivered nicotine into the system depends on how often they hit the cigarette, how deeply they inhale, how much of the cigarette they smoke, along with how strong it is in the beginning. So transferring that to the math that it takes to get the right size patch, it's just complete guesswork. I don't give a shit what your doctor says. It's fucking guesswork. So you can end up getting more nicotine through the patch, and that don't really help you. So my problem with all of these methods so far that I've listed, with the gum, lozenges, patches, it's just nicotine replacement. And as I said, nicotine does bad things to you, like fuck up your concentration and make it very difficult to calm down. So you don't really want a replacement. You just don't want it in your body anymore. Okay, so that brings me to the next thing. Cold turkey. Works great, actually, really works. If you're very determined to not smoke, that'll work fine. The problem is it's going to be tough. You get caffeine is pretty. I just keep using caffeine because it's a really easy example. Caffeine's pretty easy to get over. It's very bad for a few days, but then it's gone and it's out of your body. And once it's out of your body, you really don't crave it as much as you think you're going to. You're really more addicted, in my opinion, to the high fructose corn syrup than you are to the caffeine. That's also how I feel about cigarettes. There's so much byproduct and additives in there. You have no idea how addictive the byproducts and additives are because the government doesn't force them to talk about that because some of those additives they've made them put in there. And an example, it's a rough example, but this is a very accurate example. If you know anyone who's ever, or if you yourself have ever had any prescriptions for painkillers, just oxycodone, for example, some people tend to overuse that stuff, and then later on they will start to use heroin. And you ask any one of them, they'll say, oh, heroin's so much stronger. Oh, heroin's so much better. Heroin's so much harder to quit. I don't believe that. I think heroin's actually not as strong as prescription painkillers, and I think heroin's also filled with so many byproducts and cut that the people that get addicted to heroin get just as addicted to the byproducts and the cut, because what they do with those byproducts and cut is they cause your body to go into a type of toxic shock. And the feeling of toxic shock gets misconstrued in your head as the high, in conjunction with the actual high that you get from the opiate. So that's part of the reason that so many people who use that have such a fail rate when it comes to staying quit. But the thing is, it's the exact same thing for cigarettes. There's even more byproduct and cut in cigarettes and tobacco than there is in heroin. And the government doesn't even talk about that. Partially because they make the companies put some of that stuff in there. But that's the truly dangerous stuff. You don't know what you're getting. So cold turkey is a great way to do it because you're not replacing that garbage in your body with different garbage. But the problem is it's going to be hard. And you're going to need some time to be able to, essentially have little anger breakdowns and other kinds of, emotional episodes that you're going to need to get through before you stabilize. And the amount of time that will take will depend on how long you smoke and how many cigarettes you smoke a day, obviously. And I'm going to tell you, it's not easy. Day 1 is hard, but it's not the hardest. Day 3 is much harder. And after the end of week 1 through week 3 is even more hard than the first week. To be completely out of your system, just like heroin, for example, it doesn't take long physically for the drug to be out of your system. It really doesn't. The reason why so many addicts, after being in treatment somewhere inpatient where they're completely cleaned out physically of the drug, the reason why so many of them go back to it is they are just as addicted to the delivery method, the cut, the lifestyle, the feeling, and it's the same thing that happens with us with cigarettes. We're so used to the lifestyle, the repetitiveness, that it becomes such a psychological barrier to have to cross over. I remember I talked to an addiction specialist once who told me that the reason why he thought crack was more addictive than heroin. Okay, we're not arguing this. I'm just going to tell you the story, so as a point of reference. The reason why he thought crack was more addictive than heroin was because you had to take the crack into your body more frequently to stay high than you did the heroin, and therefore it was habit forming because you were used to smoking it. Whereas shooting up, as bad as it is and as physically addictive as it is, you could do it, let's say, twice a day versus 10, 15 times a day when you're smoking crack. Well, now let's just apply that to cigarettes. 20, 40, 60 times a day. Holy crap, that's a lot of habit. It's muscle memory. You're just completely training your body, every aspect of what you do every day. So cold turkey, for people, it's doable, but everybody breaks down. They hit they hit one of their triggers and they break down, or they have an episode with anger or anxiety, and they blame it on the lack of nicotine. That's really not what it is. It's really not the lack of nicotine. Remember what I said, false facts? Nicotine doesn't calm you down. That happens because you're in a habit. Cigarettes have become muscle memory. And it takes a while to retrain your body. It's really about retraining. So, that being said, how about Chantix? Well, I've had some experience with that too. And I've never had anything out of all these methods, except for the final one I'm going to tell you about. Of all these methods, I've never had one that worked as well as Chantix. It worked almost immediately. And, it's just like any... If you ever use any kind of antidepressant, the way they usually prescribe it is they start with a smaller dosage that you build up until you get to your plateau dosage, which they try to figure out for you, and then they keep you at that. And then they always check on you and say, well, how's it working this month? How's it working this month? And they make adjustments. It's fucking doctors, right? Guessing. Chantix is one of those things you do have to build up like an antidepressant, but you go to a level that they already have set. So you go from whatever it is, 25 to 50 to 100 milligrams, whatever the top one is. But it's like 3 tiers. And once you get to that top tier, you stay there. And I'll tell you, from the first day that I tried that, maybe the second day on, it worked fantastic. The problem with Chantix is it's got some serious side effects. And if you read through the list of side effects, this is from the Chantix website, so they're trying to make it sound as good as possible. But let me just... nausea and vomiting, stomach pain, constipation, dry mouth, altered taste buds, changes in appetite, vivid and unusual dreams, sleepiness, trouble sleeping, other sleep disorders, problems breathing. Okay, so let me just touch on the 2 most important here, because those are going to be common side effects of quitting pretty much anything that you're doing, except for the vivid and unusual dreams. Actually, I've seen it in other areas. I've seen it called wakeful dreams. That's where you're awake and it's like a daydream, but stronger, almost to the point of being like a hallucination. And man, let me tell you, that shit is real. The dreams I was having when I was sleeping were crazy, and the dreams that I was having when I was awake that went beyond daydreaming or drifting off a little bit. I mean, stuff was happening in my mind that I thought was real. I mean, it really bordered on an LSD style hallucination, and it was bad. There were a couple of things that I started to scare myself with some of the things that I almost did because I thought something was happening. And I'm not even talking about like violence, like I thought somebody was coming at me, so I almost got violence. So that'd be a nice, simple example. I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about just walking down the street and your perception of the road right next to you isn't exactly real, and you step out in front of a car. That was the kind of shit that was happening. I was just seeing things that weren't there, and things that were there weren't there as they should have been. So Chantix definitely works, but if you have any kind of issue with the dream part of it, sleeping or wakeful, you are not going to want to stay on that. It's a safety issue, really. So Chantix might work good in an inpatient setting, probably, but for a normal person who's trying to still go to work, be married, have kids, whatever other kind of normal daily shit you do, driving a car, no, walking around, no. Just I don't think it's a good idea. So before I get to what my method that I used that worked, I will also say that, interestingly enough, pretty much every other drug that I can think of, every narcotic, crack, heroin, alcohol, and every other designer drug, you can get inpatient treatment for. I mean, you can get inpatient treatment for gambling, for sex addiction, whatever that is. You can get inpatient treatment for anything except cigarettes. The thing you need it for the most, because it's altered and affected the most aspects of your lifestyle for the longest time, you can't get inpatient treatment for it. I'm sure there's some places exist that do it, but I can only imagine, because it has to be a month long. It can't be a week. A week ain't going to do it. 2 weeks probably ain't going to do it, because you really need a lifestyle change. And you really need to work on other aspects of your life and how you're going to do things and what you're going to do with your tree. There's just too much to do. You can't do. You need to be in it a month, and no insurance is going to pay for it, and no average person with regular working man money is going to be able to afford it. But it's what's really needed. And if the government, this is like us keep, I just want to piss on the government a little bit. If the government really gave a shit about people quitting smoking, they would offer a doable inpatient treatment. I mean, now they just raised the age of tobacco to 21. And again, I would say I'm not supporting smoking, but dude, I definitely support a person's right to make their own choices. I definitely support a person's right to do any drugs that they want, you know, as long as they don't hurt other people in the process. I don't think drugs should be illegal, et cetera, et cetera. And the same with cigarettes. I mean, raising the age to 21, I understand why you're doing it, and you're trying to play big brother and look out for people, but you know, people that want to do it are going to do it. Just like putting a 50 to 100% tax on the price of cigarettes so that they go from $2 to $3 a pack up to $8 or $10, and using that as justification because you're going to put it into the healthcare system for all these people and all the collateral damage that they created while they were smoking. It's fucking, whether or not it's true, and I don't really believe all that money goes there. You're still, you know, you're trying to help somebody in a way that isn't going to help them, because it's still not going to stop them if that's what they want to do. What did I do to quit smoking? All right, well, let's talk about Trump for one more second, okay? This is kind of important. I'm not going to talk about anything political, so don't even fucking talk about politics in my thread here, because I don't want to hear no fucking Trump bashing, and I don't want to hear no fucking Trump supporters. I don't want to hear anything about it. I'm just going to say about what he did. He did something relating to this, okay? Because vaping is the way that you quit smoking, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. But a few months ago, it was in, I don't remember exactly, it was in the fall 2019, he went on this anti-vaping thing. All of a sudden, he's like, oh, this vaping is really dangerous, and we're going to go after all these people that are doing this, and we're going to put some kind of regulation on it because it's not regulated enough. Well, first of all, he crossed a couple of informational wires there, because these people who were dying from or getting very sick from vaping, it was two things that he didn't put into the data, just another skewed statistic that the government likes to put out. Number one is a lot of these people that were having problems with vaping were vaping with marijuana, and they were using stuff that people were making at home. And some people know how to make that shit right, and some people don't know how to make that shit right. So depending on where you buy it, there's going to be, who you get it from is going to be a huge quality difference. So yeah, some of those people who were vaping those little homemade marijuana cartridges, yeah, they were getting fucked up. Because it definitely can be dangerous if the cook don't know what they're doing, okay? Another reason it should be legal. And number two thing, is also mixing in people that use stuff like the Juul. So now, let me talk about vaping more specifically. So, February 2018, I had, this is enough moment, that one day, and I just said, fuck it, I'm going to quit. I had already bought a vape. It wasn't a very good one. I tried it a little, and it wasn't working to replace the cigarettes in any capacity, so I went back to the vape store, and I'm like, I'm done today. I got to get something to use. So what are we going to do? So I remember that because a lot of young kids generally work at those places. I remember one of the kids that's working there is like, oh, why don't you try this one, the Juul? And I'm like, well, what's the Juul? And they show me, and it's a disposable one, right? Where you throw the cartridge out and you put a new cartridge in and the battery, blah, blah. So I'm looking at all these different vapes, bigger ones like this, and then the ones that are like this, but a little wider, and the other different types that they have. And I'm looking at this Juul, and I'm like, well, that's nice. It's little. Feel more like a cigarette, probably help, right? Because you're thinking, well, muscle memory, what are you going to do to try to replace it so that you don't fail? Well, after I had to ask a few different people at the store till somebody could finally give me an answer, and I said, well, because these different nicotine liquids that you can get, they come with a number on the side saying how much nicotine is in them. And I said, well, how much is in a Juul? And they couldn't tell me. And finally somebody said, well, I think it's like 50 or 55 milligrams. I said, well, hold the fuck on. 55 milligrams. I said, that can't be right. I said, that's poison. That you kill people with that. You can't possibly have 50 milligrams or more in a vape. Oh yeah, that's what it is. So I thought they were wrong. I talked to a few more people, or a lot of people. This vape store has like 10 people that work there. Plus there's a bunch of people always in there. And so I was talking about, like, yeah, that is what it is. And I Googled it, and 50 milligrams, okay? Think about how ridiculous that is, okay? I smoke cigarettes that had 18 to 20 milligrams of nicotine in them. The most addictive, or the highest amount of nicotine that you can get. You know, Camel Straights, Luckies, Pall Malls, without a filter, being pretty much at the top, and then stuff like Marlboro Reds, Camel filters, Winston's, regular Newports, right? For you menthol smokers, don't think I forgot you, right? Be coming in at number 2, all having 16 to 20 milligrams, right? That's the top shit. Now they're selling a vape that has more than double that. And I said, well, that's fucking insane. Why would I try to quit smoking by doubling or tripling my nicotine intake? That's fucking stupid. So they're like, well, okay, if you're going to try to quit smoking, you should get this stuff. And they show you one of these. It's not this brand, it's different brands. I'm just going to show you the bottle. They come in these little bottles, and they're like, yeah, these are the ones that have more nicotine in them, like 15 to 20, 25 milligrams. And everybody who quits smoking, those are the ones you're supposed to use because they have more nicotine in them. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that sounds to me just like using gums or lozenges or patches. You're just doing complete nicotine replacement. I wanted the vape for something else, okay? I did want a little bit of nicotine replacement because I was concerned that I was gonna lose it and not be able to stay off of the cigarettes. So I did want some nicotine in it, but I'm like, after some consideration, I went with a 6. Okay, they come in these odd sizes. They come in 3, 6, 9, 12, and then 15 and up. And then from the 15 and up, I think they go by the milligram depending on the brands. But the 3, 6, and no, there's no 9. I apologize. 3, 6, 12. The 3, 6, 12s are the most popular for all the ones that are packaged like this. This is a pretty common size. This size is one size bigger. Those kinds with the pretty little colors on them, those are the most popular ones. And I said, yeah. And they're like, well, how about a 12? And I said, I don't know. I mean, I'm going to quit. I should try to get less. Let's just start with a 6. So I went on a 6. I stayed on a 6 for a couple months. I went down to 3. Stayed on a 3 for a couple months. Then went down to 0. But I just want to say, if you are going to quit, number 1, don't use those disposable ones like a Juul. Definitely not a Juul. Don't use anything that has a high amount of nicotine, because the idea of doing this is not nicotine replacement. What is the idea of doing this? I'll tell you. Number 1, it's muscle memory. Okay? The biggest problem with cigarettes and cigarette addiction is the muscle memory. You're used to just doing it. You're used to the ashtray, you're used to ashing it, you're used to standing, sitting a certain way, accommodating your cigarette. So now you're going to be picking up or carrying around a vape, so it's already a little different. But one thing that you're not going to be doing, one thing that's important to get a good vape, okay? So one thing that you are going to do that's going to be very similar is you're going to do this. You're going to be inhaling some of this stuff, right? So the biggest complaint I had heard from people who had tried to quit smoking and had used a vape was that it didn't feel like a cigarette. When they took a hit, it didn't feel like a cigarette. So you want something that produces a lot of vapor so that when you're inhaling it, it feels like you're getting a cigarette hit. In the store, they called that throat hit, which I think is the dumbest fucking term for that, because it's not really a throat hit. It's actually, I would call it more of a lung filler, because it has to feel the same way as it does when you smoke a cigarette, because there's that instant delivery feeling when it goes into your lungs and the nicotine goes, right? That's how nicotine works. That's why it's so addictive, because it goes fast. So you want the part of your muscle memory that's not your hand to your mouth. The other part is the feeling that you get through your inhalation system. Where's my fucking brain? Through your lungs. Why can't I think of the fucking word? Jesus. But you know what I mean. The feeling that you get is the other part of them. I'm going to call it muscle memory because it's the best way to think through what it actually is, though. It's not muscle, but it's the feeling that you get when you have that smoke in your lungs, right? So that, to me, was the most addictive part of the smoking, because after I did enough reading about nicotine and all the things that it doesn't actually do, I thought, well, to get the nicotine out of my body won't take that long, so let's just reduce it a lot and see what happens. So I started with this vape. I started with the 6. I did it for a couple of months, and honestly, I probably could have turned it down to 3 within a week or 2. But I was so happy when I first quit that I didn't want cigarettes, that I figured I'd just keep it at a 6 for a while. This ain't so bad. Then I went down to a 3. And let me tell you, just reiterate this point, 29 years smoking, okay, smoking 2 to 3 packs a day. I had absolutely no desire to have a cigarette with that tiny, tiny amount of nicotine that was in the vape. So you do not need a high level of nicotine. Do not make that mistake. Okay? So after a while, I finally got myself down to a 0, right? Now, if you read the ingredients in here, there are 2 different popular configurations for how this stuff is made, except the one of them I don't ever really see anymore. The only one that I ever see anymore is it's basically vegetable oil. So you're smoking vegetable oil. Now, does smoking vegetable oil sound like a good idea? Not really. I mean, but also smoking vegetable oil versus smoking a cigarette. I mean, vegetable oil ain't as bad as a cigarette, right? And I'll tell you what, my lung capacity increased the whole time that I was doing this, using the vape. I did it. I stayed focused on the fact that I didn't want to do it anymore, and I started using a vape. So, in conjunction with that, I started exercise. I'd always exercise a little bit, even when it was hard. I always pushed myself a little bit, but I had, like I said, gotten away from things that I used to really like to do. Different sports type stuff. So I started working out, and I started working out hard. And I'm not going to have a conversation about which gym is better or which workout system is better. I mean, I could make another video on my opinion on that, I suppose. But I'm just going to say that I did a lot of the HIIT training, the high intensity stuff, because it forces a lot of anaerobic, and it forces you to really hit your lungs and open them up and make it work. And the best way to remind yourself why you're doing it is to keep pushing. Keep pushing, keep pushing, keep pushing. And it's also a great way to burn fat. And fat is a problem you're going to have when you first quit smoking. Because, let's go back to the other thing. It's true that nicotine is an appetite suppressant. Yes and no. It does suppress your appetite and make you eat less, but it also makes you eat more junk food. So once you have that out of your system, the first thing that you're going to notice, because this stuff, they do make tobacco-flavored vape juice, which is another thing, like 50 milligram vape juice is asinine to me. Why the fuck would you want tobacco flavor? So, as an alternative to that, the other populars are either fruity flavors or creamy flavors, basically desserts or fruits. I go for the fruits, though they're both okay. And what you will notice is after a week or two of doing this, at first, you're going to notice the feeling of it going into your lungs. That's the most important part, that the resistance that you get feels like a drag of a cigarette. The amount of smoke that you exhale feels like a drag of a cigarette. That's the most important part, to trick yourself into thinking you're still, it's called pleasing that muscle memory, right? But after a while, after a couple of weeks, you're going to notice you can actually taste the stuff that you're vaping. And then you'll get a lot more picky about what you get, because believe me, there's a lot of nasty ones out there. And there's a few that are good, and you find what you like, and hopefully they don't discontinue it, because these things come and go all the time. So you got to really find something you like and get it. But you're going to notice that you taste it, and you're like, wow, this is a fruity taste, man. Like, I haven't really tasted fruit like this in a while. Now, it's a false taste. It's not obviously real fruit, but what you'll also notice is that you'll start to eat stuff that you either ate a lot before or you haven't eaten in years, and you'll notice that it starts to taste different or better. I eat a lot of avocados, okay, and I have eaten a lot of apples in the past, but I got to tell you, I hadn't eaten apples in years. Towards the last few years of my smoking, I hadn't even thought about eating an apple, because they just all kind of bland, the same. And other vegetables too. I mean, I always ate salads. I like the good salad, healthy salad with a quality lettuce, not like a shitty salad with iceberg lettuce. But there's all kinds of places now that are catering to healthier stuff that have good quality toppings, different vegetables and other things, and you don't really taste that stuff as well until you repair your mouth and your taste buds and just your palate in general. And you'll maybe while you're smoking heavily, you'll eat something like a good salad with a dinner, and you'll be like, yeah, it was all right, but I could never fill up on that, or I could never eat like just a big salad instead of like a small salad with some kind of entree. I could never just eat like a big salad with chicken or something else on it, with some other protein on top of a healthy salad, because it tastes okay. you'll notice this kind of stuff changes, and especially when if you can add exercise in, you start to appreciate the food again. And after a while, you'll have an aha moment, as I did, like, holy shit, I did not realize how badly I destroyed my palate. And I think that the moment for that, for me, really came when I first tried to have some junk food, because I stopped drinking soda, fortunately, a couple years before I quit smoking cigarettes. I did switch to Red Bull, though, and I was drinking a shit ton of Red Bull for a while. The little blueberry ones and the little yellow tangerine ones, man, I drank like 10 of those a day. A lot. As bad as drinking 4 or 5 sodas a day, And I did quit that the Red Bull, about 6 months before I quit smoking. I had cut that out because it costs just an incredible amount of money, and that's not good for you either. But I still was eating a lot of junk food, and when I quit and started to exercise, I stopped eating chips for a while. I definitely didn't eat any candy bars or anything like that, and I gotta tell you, dude, after I had not eaten anything like that for a while, and I'd been eating, always ate healthy, but I ate a little healthier, like eat a pizza once in a while, but not eat pizza like 3 or 4 days a week. That's what I mean by eating healthier. Nothing grand, just, eat 2 salads a day instead of eating a salad every 3 days. Just staying more focused on it. One thing that I noticed is that once I had stopped buying bags of chips of any kind or any junk food, man, the first time I had Doritos, I was like, holy shit, I can't fucking eat this. This is disgusting. Like, God, how much salt is on this? How many times have I pounded down a bag of Doritos or 2 and been like, oh yeah, this is all right. This tastes pretty good. I like this flavor. Man, to this day, I might be able to eat like 3 or 4 of them, but that's it. I definitely could not eat a bag. Man, I tried a Twinkie, okay? I was never like a big candy and Twinkie stuffing in my face kind of person, but I did once in a while binge on them, and I go get something, I eat a couple of them, right? I mean, I tried eating a Twinkie, and I was just like, oh my God, my fucking teeth just disgust. I can feel it in my mouth. It was just like somebody took a shit in my fucking mouth. Not to disparage Twinkies, but I mean, because it's the same for a Snickers bar, Butterfinger, anything that kind of candy with sugar like that. You take a tiny break from it, let your palate recuperate, then try it again, and you're going to be like, fuck, I don't ever want that again. You really don't. And so, as bad as it is that you start to eat more because you've lost that appetite suppressant, you can easily, without a lot of extra stress on top of the quitting smoking, you can easily train yourself to make those snacks something healthy. Pieces of fruit or, other things. There are other things to eat that are halfway healthy, that taste good. And if you can stay away from stuffing your face with extra sugary and salty stuff constantly because you're not smoking and you're using that as a replacement, if you can stay away from that, then you're not going to have that weight gain problem. And you might gain a little weight, but you can also lose it if you're exercising. Exercise is not a cure-all for fatness. Okay, I don't want to get into an exercise video, but I'll just say this, and I've learned this even more in the last couple of years, but exercise is a good way for maintenance, and it's a good way for tone. Overall eating habits are going to determine how big you're going to get, and your activity level with stuff too, but you have to eat a perfect diet to be perfectly ripped top to bottom all the time, but you can maintain with some tone. You can be 5 pounds or 10 pounds overweight. You don't got to be 40 pounds overweight. You don't have to go from smoking and being 10 pounds overweight to being 40 pounds overweight. That really doesn't have to happen. Don't let anybody convince you that's going to happen. It won't. Not as long as you take a break from all the sugar and garbage when you're quitting smoking too. At least give yourself a month break, because I guarantee after that month you go back to it and you try it, it's not going to do it for you like it did before. You're not going to want it. Okay? I drink a shit ton of water, always have. I drink a lot more water now because I'm also not filling my stomach with, expanding soda. And though I don't have caffeine too often, I will sometimes have tea, So, I mean, if you're a coffee drinker, I don't think that your world has to end and you can't have coffee either. It's mostly everything else with caffeine that has high fructose corn syrup in it. So, if coffee is a big deal for you and it's a trigger for your cigarettes, then you might have to not have it. It's not going to be, like I said, first couple of days will be rough, but other than that, it's really not going to be that bad. I would recommend quitting the caffeine 3, 4, 5 days before you're going to quit the smoking and get the physical part of that out of your system. Then get your vape and then start. And now, I'll tell you something else important, okay? This is a little bit hard for me to talk about. This is kind of a personal admission of my fuck up, but I think it's also very important that I am clear about this too. So, I had actually, it's kind of strange, man. My grandfather died about 20 years ago, and I had a memorial box of stuff of his. And inside there, along with a lot of other personal mementos, was a pack of his Pall Malls, and there was one Pall Mall left in there, right? So about 3.5, 4 months ago, I was cleaning out some stuff, and I went through and I saw the box, and I'm looking through all this shit, being emotional, and I saw that Pall Mall, and I'm like, I wonder what I should do with this. Should I keep saving this, And I should also point out that, I've been at a zero nicotine in my vape for well over a year. So at this point, I was still using the vape, but I had gone. I'm sorry. I should probably have also clarified this too. When I first quit, I was using approximately this size bottle. I was using about 2 to 2.5 bottles of this much liquid per week. And by the way, you're still going to save a shit ton of money even doing this compared to smoking. So you will have that immediate incentive. But by the time we had got to a few months ago, when I was going through this stuff, I was down to about a bottle every 2 weeks. So I was using about a bottle of vape liquid every 2 weeks at zero nicotine. I was even leaving the house frequently without taking the vape with. And another thing you will notice when you vape is that, when you have a cigarette, you have to make it kind of a ritual, especially nowadays, as it's not socially acceptable. You're a pariah if you smoke, and the government doesn't let you smoke anywhere. So when you have a cigarette, it's got to be a project. If you're at work, you have to take a work break. You got to go out, and you're gonna have to go outside. Nobody's gonna let you smoke inside unless you work somewhere where you can get away with it in the back somewhere. But the point is, you're always gonna have to make it an event. You can't just smoke and keep working like they would have done in the 40s or something, and everybody just shuts their mouth and minds their own fucking business. Everybody's baby, and you can't do it around anybody, so you got to make it a big project. So the one thing about the vape you'll notice is that if you need to hit the vape, it's easy enough to hit it once or twice, and then put it down and go back to what you're doing, and it gives you that same feeling as if that you think you need from having a cigarette. So instead of having to make that a long project, it's shorter. So that's one thing you'll notice. If you're carrying it around, you need to hit. Even if you're in your car, right? You're in your car, you're driving, you're stuck in traffic. You do that maybe a couple of times, then you put it down. And unlike a cigarette where you're conscientious of it burning, where you can smell it burning, unlike a cigarette where you can maybe see it burning if you're using an ashtray or it's in your hand or you're hanging it out the window, whatever you're doing, you put it down and then you realize you don't need to pick it up again. So you don't, if you say you take 15 total drags from your cigarette before you put it out, whatever the number is, you don't need 15 total drags from your vape before you can set it down and be like, okay, I had my cigarette for, this quadrant of time, 10 minutes, 1 hour, however often you smoke. So you'll find you can hit it once and then keep going. So that's a huge advantage right there. I'm gonna come back to time in a minute. So I'm looking at this cigarette that I found, right? And I'm like, well, there's no harm in smoking this thing. Plus, it's 20 years old, so it's a non-fire safety. It'll probably be stale as hell, but I'll smoke this thing, think about my grandpa for a little bit, and then this cigarette will be gone because I don't want to have any cigarettes in the house anyways. What do I need them for? So I smoked the cigarette, and I gotta tell you, it tasted great. Man, the non-fire safety cigarettes tasted so much better. And it really wasn't that big a deal, but I did go and get a pack of cigarettes after that, right? And I'm like, I've had this beat for so long. Let's say it was a year and 7 months at that point. I've had this beat for so long that I got a fucking handle on it. Because I'll tell you another thing about using the vape and not smoking, and this is when I was already at a zero nic. I was to the point where I could walk outside around a bunch of people who were having a cigarette and stand there and talk to them and smell, not the secondhand smoke they were breathing out, because that doesn't smell good, but the burning cigarette, that smells great, and that'll probably always smell good to me. But I was at the point where I could go outside, talk to a group of people like that, never once think of asking them for a cigarette, never want a cigarette, nothing, just being okay with just glasses. There's so much garbage on my desk too. My place is a mess. I should have probably cleaned up better, but I just wanted to get the video done. But anyways, I could stand out there and it didn't bother me. In fact, there are a couple of times people would be in my car and they're like, hey, can I have a cigarette? And we're driving somewhere and it would have been inconvenient to stop. And I'm like, I don't give a shit, just roll down the window. And now I would say, for what it's worth, these were also times my kid wasn't with me, because now I was definitely being conscientious about having my children be around, my children being around the cigarettes. So didn't have a cigarette in my car, and using the window, of course, not ashing in the car and not being stupid and burning anything, but it didn't bother me at all. I mean, when I say it didn't bother me, I don't mean like it didn't annoy me. I mean like it was not a trigger. It's so important for me to mention this so you understand how what a different life it is. Just not a trigger. I could smell that cigarette and it did nothing for me. So when I smoked this Pall Mall, and I did inhale most of it, I was like, man, I got this shit beat. I can't fucking believe it. Almost 30 years of smoking. So I went out and bought pack of cigarettes, and I bought a brand I didn't like, and I played with it. I played with that pack of cigarettes, 2 packs really. I played with the next 2 packs of cigarettes that I got for a while. I wouldn't smoke them in the house, so I wouldn't be around my kids, because of course they would have been like, Daddy, what are you doing? So I would go outside, and like if I was walking to the store, which is like a block or 2 away, I walked there a lot, I'd light a cigarette, and I would light it without inhaling it, and I would just hold it, and I'd literally play with it, watch it burn, flick it a little bit, puff it a little bit to keep it going, but not inhale it. And every time that little puff was in my mouth, I was like, man, this tastes like fucking dog shit. I can't even understand how I got so addicted to this in the first place. I mean, I was even younger then. How could I possibly have liked it this much? And I did that, and I mean, I went through, like I said, a couple of packs of cigarettes like that. They lasted like, week and a half, 2 weeks, because it's like I was just playing around with it. And it was like facing your fears after, like a counterphobia. I've actually, I hate to use another drug analogy, but I've seen drug users do this too, where they go around people they know that are using drugs, and they're like, no, I got a handle on this. I can be around somebody who's snorting coke, and I'm not going to want to do it just because I did it before, or I can be around. And, they can sometimes for a short period of time. But I hate to use a cliche, but it is a slippery slope. You're around it long enough, you might just have a breakdown. And that's what happened. After that second pack of me playing around, I'm like, I'm going to get a different brand, and I got something else, and then all of a sudden I'm like, fucking, I can inhale this, dude. Not only can I light it and play with it, not only can I have it in my possession, but I can inhale it too, and I'll be okay, because at this point, my lungs are so strong, because I'm working out daily. I can do stuff I haven't been able to do for years, man. The physical stuff I can do, the amount of running I can do. I got on one of them exercise bikes, where the I think they're called cross-country machines, where the legs go up and down, you do the hand thing. And I cranked that thing up to maximum incline, maximum resistance. I did that for an hour and a half one day, And I got off, and I'm like, I'm even winded, I could keep going. I just one time I did that, and another time I did that with sit-ups. I'm like, I'm going to see how many sit-ups I can do. And, I wasn't doing them at any kind of rocket impressive speed, but I remember I got to about 350, and I'm like, man, I can't fucking believe I did 350 sit-ups. Like, my stomach hurts, the muscles definitely hurt, the muscles doing it, and I had to go slower because I'm not a super core man. I wish I was, but my lungs didn't give out on me. And there was other stuff, push-ups, just other physical stuff I could do. I can't believe how much my lungs have recovered. They must be back at 75, 80% of where they should be at least. And that's while I was still vaping. So I just got so confident. I'm like, well, I can do this. I can smoke. And I'm going to tell you, I started smoking again. And I went about 2 months. Smoking. And I changed some of my habits. I smoked a little bit less than I was before, but at first it was, I'm gonna buy a pack and I'm gonna smoke this pack, but I'm only gonna smoke it when I'm outside walking around, definitely not let my kids see it. Smoked a couple cigarettes like that, and then I was like, well, I'll just smoke in my house or my apartment, but not when the kids are home. Smoked a couple like that. Then like, well, I just finished eating and I really want a cigarette, and normally I would say no, and I would make myself not have, because that was a big trigger. I'll just have a fucking cigarette. And then before you knew it, man, I'm back to a pack and a half, almost 2 packs a day, and I'm ready to cry. Like, and I'm still working out too, by the way. And I'm ready to cry, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? And part of the problem is that I recovered so much lung capacity in that time that I was still able to work out and do a lot of that same stuff. Because I had recovered so much capacity, I had not yet re-damaged my, bronchi and everything else that's in there to the point where where I just couldn't work out. But I was starting to make bad time management choices. And I was also starting to spend money again. And I finally said, okay, that's it. I got to quit again. So I did quit again. I'm now successfully quit again for a good period of time where I'm still counting this upcoming February as my 2-year anniversary, even though I did have this little slip up for about 2 months. But I have had to start using the vape more. But I quit. And the day I quit, I want to show you on here. The day I quit, I used a 0. This one's a 0 also. A 0. I did stick with 0. And let me tell you something very interesting, actually. This is almost, in a way, it's good that I did this because I learned this. I'm fine using the 0. Completely fine. Did not need any nicotine. And I would almost advocate, if you are going to try doing this method with the vape, that maybe you even consider just starting at 0 right away. Because I found it was easier this time to quit. The first 2 days, I had some serious anger and irritability issues. And what I had to do was, first of all, I had to apologize to my kids about 100 times. By now they knew I was smoking, and I told them I'm going to quit. I said, listen, Dad's going to be, because they're young, not really young, but they're like 9 and 10. So Dad's going to be an asshole for a few days. I'm already aware that this is going to happen, so we're going to have minimal interaction, okay? And whenever I feel like I'm going to get frustrated or cranky, I'm just going to go for a walk. So if I tell you I'm going for a walk, just let me go so I can keep that out of the house. But that irritability was just like, sorry, I thought that shut off. That irritability, man, was only like 2 days. It was so much of a shorter period because I made enough of a healthy impact on lifestyle change that it worked again, and it worked quicker. But I am still on this, and I don't know how long I'm going to be using this, but I definitely know that I'm at a 0, and I also know that once I get comfortable, then the vaping will be cut out. So that points me back to Trump and his anti-vaping. He's coming from a good place because he's trying to do something that he thinks is healthy, just like raising the cigarette age, but it's a freedom of choice issue, and also, just like everything else the government does, regardless of the administration, you don't fucking do things that are practical implementations of a solution. You just do shit that looks good on the TV news. So, to you, all of you, every fucking Republican and Democrat in the fucking House and Senate, fuck all you, y'all suck. But that's another video. So, this is what I did. And I think that the most improved things that I can talk about, and I think it's very important to appreciate how great every one of these things are, is your appetite for good food and your palate, your ability to concentrate. My ability to concentrate and to finish a task, even with my attention deficit, has increased since I've stopped smoking. And potentially, the most valuable thing is time management. And I knew time management was something I wanted to talk about when I talked about quitting smoking, when I tried to make this video so many other times. And I think it took me smoking again for a short period of time and then quitting again to really be convinced on how important time management is, because you just don't realize how much time you spend catering the rest of your life around your need to smoke cigarettes. And yes, when you're at work, nowadays in a workplace, you have to go outside, and that's a pretty easy, obvious example, but that's not even it. How many times you sitting at home, I'm sitting at my desk here by my computer, right? So whatever the equivalent is for you, couch, chair, your computer desk, whatever your spot is, how many times are you sitting, or in your garage, how many times are you there doing something and it's time for you to do something else? You got something else you want to do, something else you have to do. You got to drive your kids somewhere. You got to just do anything. Time to take a shower, time to fucking do anything. How many times are you doing that? And you tell yourself, well, I'll just have a cigarette real quick first. And next thing you know, you're watching YouTube or some other dumb shit, and you're smoking 5 cigarettes in a row or having a drink, whatever else it is you're doing, and you realize, shit, man, I just wasted a half hour because you're ready to go. You're ready to get on to your next task, whatever it is you're doing. It can be a fun task. I'm just saying, your next task, whatever it is you're doing, but then you're like, fucking, I'm going to have a cigarette. How many times in your life have you accommodated for your cigarettes? How much time have you wasted? I mean, one of the most, still see reflections all over the place. One of the most disturbing statistics that I ever heard in my life was that the average person spends 6 hours of their life waiting in line. I don't know how the fuck they can possibly, how that can be a real thing anybody can figure out, but the premise behind it is disturbing, because we have a finite amount of time on this planet, and to think that we waste 6 hours of it, whether it's waiting in a line, being stuck in traffic, waiting on hold because every company wants to put you through some kind of automated system where you got to sit there and wait, and you don't even get to talk with somebody who you can speak to normally. That's a lot. So I do everything that I can to avoid lines. As best I can, I try not to drive when it's busy because I don't want to sit in traffic for an hour when I don't need to, and I try not to sit on hold and other shit like that. But if you were to add in the amount of time that a smoker spends accommodating their smoking habit, and even though, like I said, some of it's because the government won't let you smoke places and because it's socially unacceptable to smoke in other places, sure, that's part of it, and sure, you can blame them. But the truth is, even without that, whether you realize it or not, you have wasted a fuck ton of your life, ton of time, accommodating the fact that you want to have a cigarette. How many times have you been ready to go to bed and you're like, I'll have one more cigarette? How many times have you got up in the morning, had a cigarette, and been like, I should start getting ready, but fucking, I'm going to have one more cigarette first? How many times? More than you can probably count. So that is as important as your health improving. The amount of time that you save, it's invaluable. You can't put a price on, you can put a price on how much money you'll save not buying cigarettes, and you can put a price on compared to a vape, because get a good vape, about $50. Get the juice and the coils, which are wearing parts that you have to, replace, $40-50 a month. Less if you're using less. It doesn't have to be super expensive. It really doesn't. Compared to cigarettes, you're going to save a ton of money. So you can put a money number, put a quantifiable number on that, but you can't put a quantifiable number on time. And, if you have a partner that doesn't smoke, or if you have kids who are too young to smoke, shouldn't be fucking smoking, if you have kids, think about how much time you're avoiding doing stuff with them that you could be doing. How much time you could be doing anything, even if you don't have that. Even if it's just, I want to go out and go for a walk. I want to see some people. I want to go, I want to go to the gym, or I want to go play tennis. I like tennis. Or, any other thing that you want to do. I want to go to a concert. I want to go to anywhere else you want to go. How many times have you put stuff off so that you can waste your motherfucking time and have a cigarette? Shameful. And you'll appreciate once you have all that time back, because it's worth more than anything else. It really is. So quit before you're too fucking sick, before you got stage 2 cancer. Quit before you got COPD or emphysema. And if you're going to quit, don't be afraid of a vape, no matter what the government says. Because even though they're not great for you, they're not as bad as they make them out, because they skew the statistics. So use the vape because it'll help. It'll help you retrain your daily habits and the stuff that I've been calling muscle memory. And the vape is easy to quit. Because like I said, I went from using 2.5 things of liquid a week down to about 1 every 2 weeks. And I was also at the point where I was not even carrying it around very much. But like I said, now I am, just to be sure, because I don't want to have a slip up. I'm not going to have a slip up like, well, if I go to pick my daughter up from school, I'm not going to have a slip up on the way to school and be like, I need a cigarette so bad, I'm going to stop at the gas station and get a cigarette. I'm past that. That's not going to happen. But there are other ways where the situation away from home might be too long. So yeah, I'm still going to carry it, and now I got to deal with it. But that's it. And as a quick addendum, just for those of you who are like, okay, I agree with what you said. I made it through your long-ass fucking video that you promised wasn't going to be long. What kind of vape do I want to get? I got a nunchuck to Smock, which looks like smoke, but it's actually Smock, which is a stupid fucking name. They make a lot of mass-produced cheap stuff, but you want, in my opinion, you want one that has a removable 18650 lithium battery. Some of them have these, but they're built in. You can't remove them, and some of them use other sizes, but they're built in and use a USB port to charge. It works a lot better to charge these things with a lithium battery charger, and you get more power, and you want the power because it creates that bigger amount of smoke that you're going to need to feel going in and out. So other than that, it's just a matter of picking out one that you can afford, that delivers the right amount of smoke, and then, you know, find a liquid that it doesn't taste terrible. Get it as close to zero when you're starting out as possible. Really, other than that, buy anything you want. The ones that take 2 batteries that are a little wider than this are more popular. I like the one that was a single battery just because it's a little easier to carry in your pocket. I mean, and they're not perfect. They use a coil to heat up the stuff and turn it into vapor, which you have to replace every few days. You can go a week, but they start to taste bad. So you can replace those every few days. They're like $4 or $5 for a coil. And the liquid is, you know, they're 20, $25 everywhere, but you usually can always find something on sale for 10. So that's what you should be spending. And the batteries don't cost shit. 18650s, if you're not familiar with them. I mean, I got them in a ton of different stuff. Everything's going to be lithium. So if you haven't used lithium yet, this is a good time for you to learn. 18650 batteries are used in a lot of different stuff like flashlights. The chargers for them and the batteries, you can get that stuff online so cheap. There's really no excuse to not have it. They also make them for AA's and AAA's. So you can get those as lithium rechargeables, and they work a lot better. You use them in your headphones. If you go to the gym or you jog, whatever you do, use them for that. They work in remote controls really good. So there's really no reason to not be using lithium batteries. Those are just measurements. And the last digit is an added on 0. So these are 18 by 65, 18 millimeters wide by 65 millimeters long. And the Chinese came up with the system. And for whatever reason, they had a 0 at the end, so it's 5 digits, 18650. And 18650, 18500, so it's 18 by 50 millimeters, by 65. And then if you go just a second. Where the fuck did I put them? Oh, they're there. And then don't be afraid of the technology. It's not complicated. You'll suss it out. So that's just my brief thing on the type of vape. Whatever's comfortable. If you want a follow-up video on any of these things, you can comment. We'll talk about it. I'm usually pretty good at responding to stuff. I'm sorry if I talk too long, or if my background video is not fucking perfect, because, you know, I don't spend a lot of my time editing videos. This is all you're gonna get. One other quick tidbit of wisdom. Assuming that you start exercising, do this. And now this is more so for guys. Girls, you'd have to maybe create your own equivalent. But, you know, for a guy, one of the worst things that I guess we get to each other about in our fucking manhood is the ability to do a push-up, you know. So every time you want a cigarette, drop down and do 5 push-ups. That'll help you remember why you don't want to smoke. And when you can't do them, when you're having a hard time doing them, or when you're having a hard time with air, just, you know, call yourself a fat little bitch and a piece of shit and say, I can't even do 5 fucking push-ups. What kind of man am I? Some people may not agree with that method, but you know what? It works, and it will help you. Even better, you can do burpees with 2 push-ups, you know, down, out, push up, in, up. One other thing I would suggest, some nasty food, something that you're not supposed to be eating, that you've resolved to quit eating. First of all, you probably shouldn't have it in your house. But the other thing you can do is just make yourself take a walk. It's easier if you live in a city and there's a corner store somewhere that you can go, or you just go around the block. I mean, you can do this in the country and the suburbs too, obviously, but I just like having people interaction because it helps to remind me why I'm quitting, because I want to, you know, kind of re-ingratiate myself with the society that doesn't smoke. But anytime that you're feeling that urge to eat the junk food, go ahead and take a little walk, and then think to yourself, well, I'm out here walking. I could be burning fat if I walk long enough, and I could be building a little bit of muscle mass if I eat something healthy. So maybe I'll find a healthy piece of protein or fruit or vegetable to eat instead of bad carbs or other junk food that all just turns into sugar.
Points I have to interject at the video. I was watching this, editing it, and so I'm sorry it looks like a different, still the same day. Just quick points. The other thing that happened when I had started smoking again, even though I could still work out at a good capacity because my lungs were recovered, one thing that drove me just crazy was I could smell myself. It was unbelievable. I would go to the gym, and I mean, we're talking, good cardio. I'm sweating a lot, and I could just smell the stench of cigarettes just rolling off of me, and it was disgusting. One thing that I will say is, I'm, like I said, a clean person, and I've always been pretty conscientious when I go to the gym to make sure that I am really washed up, because you're going to be sweating a lot and you want to be clean. And when I was smoking these cigarettes before I was going to work out, I was starting to think like, man, I worked out, I smelled a little cigarette and I like that. So I would be smoking at home before I go to the gym. I'd have like 4 or 5 cigarettes, and I'd take my shirt off, and I would smoke with the window open and the fan on. And then when I got to the gym, I'd put different shorts on and a clean shirt, and I would still fucking reek because I was sweating and it was coming out of my hair. And the smell was so bad. I mean, it's like, you work out next to somebody who's got some body odor, not like a little bit of sweat, which is normal, but somebody who obviously didn't wash their fucking ass or their armpits properly, and now they're sweating on top of it, and you're like, oh, good lord, fucking break and clean yourself. If that's too much, that's how I felt. Like different smell, but same with the cigarettes. It was brutal. That's point number one. Okay, and the other interjection point I want to make real quick, I got over, like I just said, I got over this extremely quickly this time. It wasn't anything like last time, and this just lends support to my theory that nicotine, as addictive as it is not nearly as addictive as the cut and the filler that they put in there. Those other chemicals and the toxic shock that it causes your body, and the mistake that you make interpreting that as addiction, high, satisfaction, whatever, that is as addictive, if not more addictive, I believe more, than the actual nicotine. Back to our regularly scheduled program.